speaking of Forsett, finally had his breakout game, over 150 yards last week. Is he back to being the Forsett that we knew last year, or is he the Forsett that we saw the first 3 weeks of the season?
I think he's back. I think he got 27 touches last week, which was one of the highest at running back, honestly. And hopefully he's figuring out that Mark Trestman offense out. Just look at what Forte did with it last year. This week he faces Cleveland. They're 29th versus the run. So I see him being huge this weekend. He's gonna be the guy to own in Baltimore for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I actually had a stat on Trestman's. Trestman's running backs, in his career have averaged 70 receptions a year. So I think Forsett definitely in a PPR. I think going forward you're going to see Forsett get the ball a lot. Like you said, 27 touches last week. I think he could possibly see that, if not more, this week with Steve Smith being out. So I'm with you. I think Forsett is back, and definitely against the Browns, who have been awful against the run. So I think Forsett definitely you want to keep in your lineup. Going to the Browns side, we're looking at the running backs here. We got Duke Johnson with a great game this past week. Didn't touch the ball as far as running the ball very often, but was huge in the passing game. For the rest of the season, who would you rather own, Duke Johnson or Isaiah Crowell?
This is another one of those, what kind of league are you in? If it's a standard league, I'd want Crowell all the way. And if it's obviously a PPR league, I'd put Johnson. But if I had to choose one, it'd be Crowell. He's running hard. He's hitting the holes good. I watched him a little bit this past weekend, and I'm actually impressed.
Yeah, I think I've seen a little bit of Crowell's myself. I like Duke Johnson a lot, but I don't know if he's ready to be that every down back yet. I think he's still a PPR. I think I heard somewhere that the Cleveland Browns actually view Duke Johnson as a Le'Veon Bell type of running back, and I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to give him that status just yet. I don't know if he's an every down back, but he definitely has the receiving part of it down. If he ever becomes an every down back, obviously he's going to be extremely valuable in that Browns offense. But I'm with you for right now. I think I'd still Crowell, especially in a standard league. I think I'm sticking with Crowell. He's the one who can get the touchdowns mostly. Let's go ahead and move on into the Bills and the Titans game. Bills coming off a disappointing loss. Titans, of course, coming off of their bye week. Looking at the Bills side of the ball, Percy Harvin has actually been, pretty decent through these first couple of weeks here. Is he something that we need to start paying attention to in fantasy? Is he back to being Percy Harvin, or is this just a product of Sammy Watkins being out and Tyrod Taylor and his rushing ability and kind of getting Percy Harvin involved?
Harvin could be a guy you stash on your bench, just plug and play here and there. But once Watkins comes back, McCoy comes back, I think he'll be irrelevant for fantasy. He's really just a boomer bust kind of guy. And for me, he hasn't been ownable since Minnesota days, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he falls in that Spiller category where he's the big play guy. He might get that one play for 80 yards and a touchdown that makes him fantasy relevant, but predicting that's going to be near impossible week in and week out. I mean, if you really have to, plug him into your lineup, I think you could, in a bye week kind of thing or an injury, but I'm not going to trust him on a weekly basis just yet. And then on the Titans side of the ball, we got two guys that I wanted to talk about. One of them is their wide receiver that hasn't really seen much of the field just yet. He had a lot of preseason hype, but they are saying they're going to get him more involved, and that, of course, is Dorial Green Beckham. Of course, he has the Beckham names. Everybody compares him immediately to the Beckham in New York, which I'm not sure if we're ready to give him that kind of status yet. But do we see Beckham on the field in a larger capacity this week, you think, after the bye week?
Well, I'm almost positive I heard today that he got arrested. Have you heard that?
I have not, but I bet I haven't been on NFL.com lately, so maybe that's something I need to look into.
Yeah, I'm almost positive I heard that today. I can't remember what the charges were, if they're ridiculous charges, but he, to me, is a guy that I'm staying away from, especially with Kendall Wright there in Tennessee. Kendall Wright's the only receiver that I touch. And Delaney Walker, of course. I like Delaney Walker. Once he's finally healthy, and all. But no, I'm not touching this Beckham. That is this season.
Yeah, I think we did have him. I had him as a breakout this year, and of course he hasn't done much yet. And of course, if he got arrested, that definitely changes things. I put him down as a stash just to see, because Kendall Wright has had those days where he just disappears. You know, he goes and has an 11 catch or a 10 catch day, and then the next week he's barely even on the stat sheet. But of course we got to go look and see, did he get arrested today, because that could definitely change things. The other guy I wanted to talk about is Antonio Andrews, the running back. He kind of went under the radar last week because he didn't have a huge fantasy game, but he did have more carries, more snaps than Bishop Sankey in that backfield. Is he the number one back there, or do we think it's just a hot hand kind of thing in Tennessee?
It's definitely a hot hand thing in Tennessee. I actually like Andrews more than the other couple of guys. I think they've got Terrence West, got Sankey there, but and I wouldn't touch the Titans running back core with a 10-foot pole, to be honest with you. And I was actually looking on this Beckham issue, and he got stopped. He got arrested at a traffic stop today.
All right, it's definitely something to monitor then.
They're not giving much further insight that I'm seeing, but it's something to monitor. I mean, will he get suspended? Who knows, honestly. But without a doubt, Andrews is my guy going forward, but I just wouldn't buy any of the Titans right now.
Yeah, I think unless you're in a really deep league, a 14 or 16 team league, I don't think Andrews is going to be on your radar unless you're desperate. I actually did add him in one of my leagues because, unfortunately, I've got guys like Andre Ellington and Joique Bell and a couple other guys that are no longer fantasy relevant right now. So I had to add him just as the hope that he breaks out. So I'm kind of desperate in that league. And of course, it's a 14-team league too, so there's like nobody on the waiver wire. So I pretty much had to pick him up in just hopes that he breaks out, but I wouldn't recommend him if you're in a 10 or 12-team league. Moving on to the next game here, we got the Rams at Green Bay. The Rams are kind of funny because the Rams have now beaten the Seahawks and the Cardinals, but have lost to the Redskins and the Titans. So that's just an interesting little stat there. You beat two teams that are suspected to be sort of playoff teams, powerhouse, Super Bowl contenders, and you lose to the Redskins and Titans that probably won't make the playoffs. Redskins, of course, are playing better than they have in the past, so they might actually make the playoffs. But looking at that Rams offense, is there anybody outside of Gurley that is worth starting? Anybody in the receiving core? We're looking at quarterback. Is Jared Cook startable?
I'll tell you, Gurley really made me feel good this weekend for drafting him. I'm hoping he keeps it up because he looked really good.
Yeah, he looked awesome.
But I think a lot of people are going to jump on that Tavon Austin bandwagon, and it just seems like every year he has that one big game, and I'm not on the bandwagon, that's for sure. Jared Cook, he's a solid tight end that you could jump in there every once in a while on a good matchup. But overall, other than Gurley, I'm not seeing any fantasy relevance with the Rams.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually stashed Brian Quick on my bench in one of my leagues, hoping that he'd eventually see the field, which he did this past week and did nothing. Because he was a very, a decent receiver last year before he had the injury. But something's going on there. I don't know if he's still injured or if he's just in the doghouse, because he's been supposedly healthy. It's been a healthy scratch the first 3 seasons and finally saw the field last week. So I still have him on my bench, but going into these bye weeks, he probably won't stay there very long if he doesn't do anything this weekend. Going to the Green Bay side, of course, we've got the powerhouse offense here. You pretty much can plug anyone into your lineups more or less each week and expect to have a good performance. But the one guy that I think everyone was sort of high on, I definitely was, actually had him as the number 1 overall pick in fantasy going into the season this year, and that's Eddie Lacy. I know he was injured out for a game, but are we worried about Eddie Lacy, or is this just how Lacy does things and he just ends up, being better down the stretch as he was last year?
I think Lacy's proven that he's a slow starter at the beginning of the year. He's just, it just takes him a minute to get the gears going. He's facing a St. Louis Rams team that's 27th versus the run, and they allow 22.9 fantasy points per game. So I think this week will be the best week so far to start Lacy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think last year, even his rookie season, he started extremely slow. You know, everyone saw, is he really the back that we think he is? Is James Starks going to take over his starting role? And then he ended up being a top 10 running back last year. I think as the weather gets colder up there in Green Bay and just around the continent in general, I think Lacy is going to be good. I think the Packers will lean on him a little bit more when it gets cold out. Rodgers won't throw the ball 50 times a game like he's been. So I think Lacy definitely, I wouldn't worry about Lacy just yet. Now, if you can get Lacy on a buy low kind of thing, I would definitely go out and do that. If you can get him for less than market value, I would do that, definitely. All right. Cardinals at Lions. Of course, I wrote this before the Monday night game, but are there any Lions outside of Calvin Johnson worth starting? And for that matter, is Calvin Johnson worth starting anymore? I mean, he hasn't really done much either.
Honestly, not against the Arizona Cardinals defense. I don't see it. I thought maybe Abdullah could be a good start, but they're actually 8th against the run. And I'm very upset with Calvin Johnson right now because the one fumble he had last night cost me 2 points, and I lost my game by 2 points.
Oh, that hurts.
So, if it would have tied, I would have won this week. I had the tiebreaker.
Oh man, that hurts.
I'm not even on the Calvin Johnson bandwagon right now, so I'm a little sour with the line. But overall, other than Calvin Johnson, not even Golden Tate. I mean, I had high expectations on Tate this year, and he just hadn't been getting the looks like I expected. Yeah,
I was high on a lot of lines too. I actually had Stafford ranked higher than most as well. Just thinking that, healthy Calvin Johnson. Now he's got, Golden Tate, who he had some rapport with last year. He's going to have Joyke Bell in the backfield with this, young rookie Amir Abdullah. I think, man, this offense is going to be amazing, and that just has not happened. I mean, we haven't seen any of it yet. No one in this offense yet has been fantasy relevant. I'm a Calvin Johnson owner myself, and he's been killing me. Actually owned him last year too with all the injuries, and still went back and drafted him again this year. Looking at the Cardinals side, of course, we have one of the craziest sort of committee by running backs here with David Johnson, Chris Johnson, Andre Ellington probably coming back this week. Do the fact that all three of them, Ellington obviously being the starter, or was the starter before he got injured, Chris Johnson really playing well, and then David Johnson showing that he's got the big playability. Do the three of them being on the field sort of limit their value and make them not relevant in fantasy, or do we think there's one guy that we want to start and the rest are sort of the second fiddle?
The one that sticks out for me is David Johnson, and that's because he's got really good PPR value. I like to say he's a big play guy. So Ellington and Chris Johnson, for me, they're injury away from being out another week. David Johnson's young. He's ready to go, obviously. And if I was drafted today, I would think about David Johnson over the two.
Well, I sure hope you're right, because I got David Johnson stashed on my bench just waiting for him to do something that I can plug him into my lineup. He's had some weeks that he's been, relevant on my bench. I just don't think he's getting the volume yet that makes me trust him to put him in my lineup just yet. But I'm really hoping that David Johnson does sort of get his chance eventually. All right, guys, I'm going to have to cut the audio there. I'm not sure if you could hear it or not, but we're starting to have some audio issues towards the end of this podcast. I had to cut off the rest of the audio. Apparently, if I record longer than an hour worth of audio on my mic, it tends to get this choppy sort of sound. So I'm just going to quickly go through the last 3 games that we had here on the docket. Apologize to Jared. He had some very good information here on these last 3 games. I'll try to remember as much as I can. But looking at the Patriots and the Dallas game, we basically talked about the running back situation in Dallas. Obviously, Joseph Brenda was benched last week. Dunbar's gone for the season. McFadden, of course, has been very ineffective. Christine Michael is actually someone you may want to stash on your bench. Add him on waivers. He may not get his chance this week, but I do expect him, and so does Jared, to eventually see some of the field. Definitely has more upside than McFadden does. The Broncos and Raiders, of course, the big story there is the C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman. both of us said that we are going to stick by C.J. Anderson for the moment. Maybe not